Hi guys, it's Mike from Inside the Magic, and I want to talk to you for a little while about something called Delusion, and this review might be a little bit longer than the average haunt review that I've been doing because I've got a lot to say. I first heard about Delusion about 2 years ago from my boss, Ricky Briganti, when he talked about it on his podcast, then called Outside the Magic, which was the sister podcast Inside the Magic, when he was talking about all the Halloween events that he was going to. And Ricky was blown away by Delusion in 2014. I think he might have gone the year before too. But when I heard that episode, I remember pausing it about 5 minutes in and thinking, I don't want to hear any more about this. I want to go and just experience it for myself. So I bought tickets that year and I went and did the 2014 iteration of Delusion, and I was similarly impressed by it. In fact, I remember wishing immediately that I had a time machine so I can go back and do the other versions of Delusion that I had missed, because 2014 was the fourth iteration of Delusion, and there were 3 before that and the 3 previous years, and each version is a different story, an entirely different experience. And then last year they kind of took a year off because I think they were looking to settle into a more permanent space for the production, and I think that fell through last year. So unfortunately there wasn't a Delusion in 2015. And then this year they finally came back with Delusion. I don't know how well you can see this. Delusion, His Crimson Queen. This is the kind of playbill that they gave out. I went over the weekend. It's, once again, it's amazing. It's I describe it as my favorite local Halloween event in Los Angeles, but it's not only that, it's gonna be one of my favorite things ever, I think, and certainly one of the live theatrical productions that one of my favorite theatrical productions that I've ever seen. And it's more than theater. It's way more than theater. It's incredibly immersive. It's what happens is, I don't want to spoil the story for you. That's my number one goal in going into this, is I don't want to ruin anything. So I'm going to be very vague about how this works and just kind of tell you the format, the outline of how both versions of Delusion that I've seen have worked. This theater company rents out a mansion in the West Adams district of Los Angeles, and this area has a lot of really old, really big houses. And both times I've seen Delusion, it was in one of those large mansion type houses in that area. And then within that house they stage this play, and it's not just a play. It's a play where you, the attendee, the guest, are one of the characters. You're in a group. I think the groups are between 8 and 10 people at the most. And you start off at the entrance to the house, and the story begins. Usually you're watching something happen, or you're interacting with a character. This year, the story starts off with kind of a portrait gallery, and the host at the beginning kind of walks you down each portrait and tells you the background of the story that's going to unfold before your eyes and around you. And then you start moving through the rooms. And each scene in the story takes place in a different room of the house. But the way you get between rooms is very organic to the story. You're usually running from something, or trying to find someone, or find an object or something. And there's a tremendous amount of interactivity in this show. Characters will ask you to do things. And I went with friends this year who hadn't gone before, and they asked me my advice on how to get the most out of the Delusion experience. And I said volunteer as much as you can, because when the characters ask the group to do something, if you're not the one who does it right away, somebody else is going to do it. And the more times you participate, the more times you're the one that does something, the more you're going to get out of the experience. And I also say that it's not the Delusion experience isn't just about jump scares. There are a few jump scares in the show, but that's not the emphasis. The emphasis is on storytelling and immersion. Delusion feels like you are a character in a movie. And I say that without exaggeration. That's what it feels like. You are in a movie with, a big budget movie's level of set design, acting, characters, special effects, and art direction all around you. So as I was walking through the house this time, I made sure to pay special attention to the sets and the way they were decorated, and the little details here and there, because everything is so meticulously thought out. And the wonderful thing about Delusion, one of the many wonderful things, is that the story takes place in the location where you are. The story takes place in a mansion, and you're in a mansion, and you walk from room to room, and you go into a bedroom. That's where you are in the story. And the reason I say that is because a lot of haunts take place in locations where you're not really. They'll rent out an office complex and they'll turn that into an old haunted motel or something. Or, like I said the other day, the CVS type storefront got transformed into Sinister Point. Which is not to say that those haunts aren't terrific. They are. But there's something to be said about feeling like you're actually in the place where you're supposed to be in the story, and how much that tricks your brain into thinking, this is really happening, I'm really here, and I'm really a part of what's happening. And one of my friends that I went with the other day said that by the end of this Delusion that we did on Saturday, he was starting to be convinced that he was this character that we were supposed to be. Without saying too much about the story, it does involve vampires this year, which, again, it's very impressive that I loved it as much as I did, because I'm not a big vampire fan. It's not my favorite subgenre of the horror genre. But they made vampires very scary in this, which is much more appealing to me than the Twilight brand of emphasis on the romantic version of vampires. These are very more traditional, very scary vampires that are following you and hunting you, and then there are good characters as well. It's a very involved story. It's great to pay attention to as you're going along. Try to keep track of the story and how it's progressing and who the characters are, and it really does help it pay off in the end. The other thing I will say is that there are visual moments in this Delusion that are seared into my brain that I'm never going to forget. There are at least a handful that are so impressive and I didn't see them coming. That's the great thing about them too, is that even having experienced one of these before and being equally as impressed with that one, this one did everything differently and everything just as impressive. So I can't recommend Delusion enough. The only negative about Delusion is that it's sold out. It's sold out through the rest of the Halloween season this year. So it might be tough to get tickets at this point. The only chance you might have is if they extend their run, which I heard that they're trying to do. So you might get lucky if you pay attention to the Delusion website, which I'll put in the description below. Sign up for their mailing list. They send out emails if more tickets go on sale. But yeah, any chance that you get, if you're into horror, if you love gothic horror storytelling, if you love immersive theater, if you've ever done anything like this before, this is the one. If you're gonna do one of them, do Delusion. Be sure to check it out. It's pretty fantastic. Thanks so much for watching. I've got a few more haunts on the way this year. This is Mike again from Inside the Magic. Happy Halloween.